Welcome, Katie. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. How are you?
I'm doing so well, thanks, Amber. I'm really excited to join you on this show.
Well, I'm so excited to have you all the way over in Australia, right?
I
Like,
know.
unbelievable. I love technology to help us connect. But essentially, why we're doing this podcast is what was it like last week, a couple weeks ago? I was like sharing in my stories how I'm like, I've been holding back. I haven't been fully myself. Afraid of being vulnerable, fear of like, what are others going to think, judgment, whatever it is. And then you messaged me, you're like, oh my gosh, I resonate. I'm feeling this in my own way. And then we had this like really nice conversation in the DMs, which was like so nice to hear from you and be like, I hope someone sees this and feels the same way, even though I hope they don't feel the same. You know what I mean? Like you just,
Yeah.
when you share, like, you just want someone in a way to reach out and just to know you're not alone, right?
Of
So it was
course.
so nice that you messaged me. And then we were like, hey, we should have this conversation around vulnerability because I feel like so many of us are hesitant. We hold back in different areas of our life for whatever the reasons, whether it's like, I feel I need to portray a certain image in my business, right? Which I feel we can both like resonate with and talk about,
100%. Yeah.
right? Yeah, so we'll dive into that today and each of our insecurities around, vulnerability and what's been coming up. So, one of the things we were talking about in the DMs was like, I feel like I have to show up a certain way, especially like with a business. Like, I think it's different if it was just your personal life and there wasn't this other entity, right, that you're attached to. Because of course, you and Andy are running this incredible business and there is a reputation, but I feel like you've built this reputation off of being yourself and authenticity. But like when you think about just showing up and being you, is that what like kind of comes in and deciphers who shows up?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly that. Like you say, when you are running a business, you kind of put that added pressure on yourself. And I don't know why we do it. I'm the worst for it, that you are expected to show up a certain way or that people are expecting to see a certain person online. Because let's
Mhm.
face it, it's online these days, isn't it? We're a global business, which means a lot of our community are all over the world. So how they see myself and Andy is predominantly online.
Mhm.
And I know I'm so guilty of putting that pressure on myself that you have to show up a certain way. I don't know where I've got this idea from that as an entrepreneur of a business, people expect you to be alpha, type a dominant, this like boss bitch sort of mentality
Mhm.
that seems to be
Mhm.
going around at the moment. And that doesn't resonate with me. I'm not that character. So I've held back in putting myself in front of the brand, you could say, for that reason, because I think that people, when they conjure up the image of what an entrepreneur is, they do picture someone like an Elon Musk, or a Steve Jobs, or, someone that is
Mhm.
very dominant and a bit of a thought leader and a bit of a sort of guru, I guess you can say, in their field. And that's not always the case. Some of us are more intuitive, maybe a bit more reserved, a bit more shy, um, but still are entrepreneurs at the end of the day. So it's a pressure that I think we put on ourselves sometimes as well. It's no one has actually said that. It's just
Mhm.
we see other people portraying a certain side of themselves or a certain character that goes with the title and think that we're meant to be like that as well. And when we're not, we can shy away from showing that to everybody else. So that's kind of where I was going through and why I resonated with your post, because I was like, yeah, I feel this right now.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think, I think part of it comes from, yeah, like we in society have been given these molds of, right? Yeah, like the boss bitch, the hustle, like, yes, be fierce, be bold, right? So there's that whole category. And then there's the category that I've observed a lot, and no judgments to any of these. Like everyone has their way, but
Absolutely.
that's the key is like everyone has a way. And then I witnessed like the sensual women who are like, you know, their expression is like being half naked on the beach and selling like from that space. And then there's the women who are like constantly in the business suit and like that's their thing and like everything in between. And there, like I said, there's nothing wrong with any of it, but I feel like we go through these phases where it's like this theme is pushed forth more and this theme is pushed forth more. And then it's like, okay, well, what should I bring a bit more of this and this, or what do people want? What's going to trigger people? And yeah, these authorities, these gurus, right? They kind of set the standard, and then I think society gets into the state of idolization, which we should never get into, right? And then it sets these themes and these trends, and then people want to be like these others because they're idolizing, but then it takes us away of our sense of self. What is my identity? Who am I? What feels good for me? How do I want to show up? And knowing that my way can create success, abundance, connection, like authenticity, and that's more powerful than like putting on the mask essentially, and showing up and hoping that this is the way that I'm going to be seen. So that definitely resonates with me too. And I think it can be tempting to see someone and see them growing fast and go, oh, look at the way they did that. Like, I'm going to start doing that. And then go, whoa, no, like chasing a dopamine hit is not, not the way.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all looking for that roadmap for life, aren't we? We want that magic blueprint that lands on our lap and says, this is how you do life, or this is how you do business, or this is how you do parenting, or whatever angle it is. We look to others and hope they have the answers. But the reality is we're all figuring it out as we go along. And there are more than one way to do things. And there's no necessarily right or wrong always. It's, it's the journey you take to get to the destination. And there's many different journeys along the way. And I think we do fall in that trap of looking at other people that are maybe a few steps ahead of us, and rightly so. You want to look at people that are a few steps ahead to get advice, but we fall in the trap of thinking that they have the answers, and for us to get there we need to do those exact same steps. And we might not be in the same part of the world, have the same belief systems, be the same character, have the same financial wealth that people have, all different factors. And it ends up being that thing that we end up copying. And at the end of the day, I guess it's primal, isn't it? It was monkey see, monkey do. That's it trained in us to look at other people and adapt what they do. And if they're getting reward for doing something, it's inherently in you to want to adopt and copy that measure because you want that end result. But we shouldn't sort of beat ourselves up for looking at other people and copying in that respect, because it is ingrained in us. However, it's just not falling into the trap of thinking that is the only way to do it, and that is the only way to achieve what they're achieving, is to follow that same path, because we're all so different, so different. It will show up, it'll come across unauthentic, and it will look like you're selling yourself in whatever way that you are, and it will show through in the end.
People can feel the energy doesn't lie, right? So you're so right on that. And I think we get caught up in the tunnel vision, this, like you said, the all or nothing, this is the only way, right? These are the people I'm following, this is the way they're preaching. And I think it's so important for us to play in different ways so that we can figure out what our identity is. So do you feel like, since you started this business, since you've grown the business has grown a lot, it's a very successful business. Actually, maybe you want to tell them, I mean, I've shared a bit about it in the intro, but if you want to go a little bit into this beautiful business that you guys birthed, my glasses are from you guys. But if you want to talk a bit about it, but like from the creation to like $1,500 in your room to now, like, have you felt that pressure grow as the business has grown?
Oh, 100%. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I think we were quite naive when we started the business, which when I look back, it is probably a blessing, because we weren't looking ahead. We were just in the here and now and kind of just going with what felt right. And we still do go with our gut instinct now. But yes, we obviously have a global wellness brand. It started just selling blue light glasses as a side hustle to our day job that we just had a few pairs in our spare bedroom, took a bit of commission that we had from our day job to buy the glasses, create a basic website, and it just grew literally organically. We obviously hit the market at the right time. The awareness of the effects of blue light on our sleep and our overall well-being was starting to gain traction, and there just wasn't the right product out there that addressed what the science was saying. So we just unknowingly, I guess, created a brand from just a side hustle idea that we had. So yeah, we just kept growing it and scaling it, and I can't take credit for that. That's Andy. He's very much the strategic thinker. He's the sales and finance mind of the business. I'm the creative side, so I just kind of saw the vision of how we could turn it into a brand, and focused on that side, whereas he grew the strategy and just organically together, it created this blend that we didn't know we had between us. We always knew that we were different characters and had different strengths, but we'd never channeled it on a business together to actually see that together we created the full circle, which unknowingly was the recipe for success. So we just continued to scale year after year by adding more and more products and working with more and more influencers and just spreading the word out there. And Andy obviously took the lead on being the educator and going on heaps of podcasts to talk about the effects of light on our health and EMFs and red light therapy and all the other topics that he's presented on, and just positioned ourselves as a brand that wanted to educate people on how we have learned these things along our journey to optimize our life, and then finding ways to create products that would help people achieve that quality of life. And yeah, it's just been, well, a journey, and a challenging journey, 100%, but definitely rewarding for sure. And every day it's a challenge. You'll know this. Anyone in business will know it. You're constantly faced with things that you didn't know yesterday, or you didn't foresee happening. As much as you can plan and think ahead, you can't think of everything. It's especially if you haven't done a business before yourself. It's your first business. It's your first hurrah into that scene. You do have to just learn as you go. But as well as that, I think there's something nice about that. I think if you had all of the answers, it wouldn't be the journey and it wouldn't be the experience. And I think it's okay to get things wrong as you go, as long as you learn from them, you're honest about it, and you adapt and move forward. So yeah, it's definitely a journey, but one that we embrace wholeheartedly. And I'm sure it's the same for you with your business.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the same for me. I don't think you can learn how to run a business without just diving into it. And like you said, you take things as they come, and it grows you into the person you become. And I think it's one of the biggest growth opportunities we can dive into, right? It's especially a mindset piece.
Oh yes.
Right.
Oh my gosh, yes. It changes you as a person. They say, nothing can really change you as a person, but business can. I mean, it might not change your values and the core of who you are, but it certainly brings out certain aspects of your character that you have to develop and grow in order to succeed, because it is a cutthroat industry. We're both in that wellness space, which is aimed at helping people. But there are other sharks in the environment that, do want to cause harm. So you do have to put your big girl pants on sometimes and toughen up. And if that's not your character, it's tough. It's really tough to learn that skill set. But when you do learn it and you are faced with a challenge where you have to stand up and, stand your ground or show up as a more confident, dominant person for that situation, you do it when it's your business, it's your life. And then when you come through the other side, you can just pat yourself on the back and be like, yeah, okay, that's not my type of character all day, every day, but I was able to pull on it for this situation that needed it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's so important for us to be compassionate for our human and for all these different, parts of us that have to come out that we can navigate in all these unexpected situations and whatever dynamics come up, and that we are human. And I think one thing about social media is it can be really easy to show all the good things going on, but when you're in vulnerability, when you're in something else, right, and you're feeling stressed or out of your power, we're not necessarily showing those moments, and not that we have to, but then the people observing us think, oh wow, look at them, everything's just perfect, they don't have any struggles or issues or insecurities. And then this creates this world of social media where there is unfortunately just so much falsehood sold, and then we get into this, we talked about this, where we're craving connection, we're craving these deeper conversations, because it feels like there's just such a disconnect with this authenticity and vulnerability. I'm sure you see it too, with the growth of your business and just being in this industry, because there is a lot of inauthenticity in the health and wellness industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I see it every day. And I'll be honest, I'm guilty of it myself as well, because what you share on your social media pages is the highlight reel, exactly as you said that. It's the moments that you want to remember. I mean, I guess people have different reasons for why they post. Me personally, I'm quite surface level with what I present. It's just something that made me happy or made me smile in the moment, or something I want to look back on and remember that moment. I'm quite a visual person, so looking back through my Instagram feed brings up those happy memories of when I traveled or when I ate out or met up with a good friend. But it is that surface level, and to the outsider it can look like that highlight reel, like this is your life, you're always traveling, you're always doing these nice things. But the reality is that in order to do those things, a lot of hard work comes in the back end of that, and a lot of heartache, and a lot of days where you're literally broken down. And when you're in those situations, you don't have the time to even think about posting on social media, nor do you want to, really. It's not a memory you want to look back on. You want to deal with that situation, push through it, and come up the other side so that you can enjoy the moments again. And you don't see that. Your social media is just a snapshot of the good things that are happening in your life, and it's very easy for people to think that that is your life, and it isn't. I mean, an example is we went to Europe. I guess that would probably be sort of the summer last year, the European summer. So obviously I was sharing all about my holiday and the lovely places that we were visiting, and we were there for my birthday. And on my birthday, we woke up in the morning and the website had gone down. So we spent 10 hours straight, Andy and I, locked in the hotel room, fixing the website. And I was just in tears. I was like, we've worked so hard for this trip, flown all the way to Europe to have a nice time, and on my birthday the website breaks and we have to spend 10 hours locked in our hotel room fixing it. And that's the reality of it, but you don't see that. Anyone on the outside just saw that we were in Europe. So it is a challenge, I think, with social media, and I think that plays a massive part in how we're feeling the way that we're feeling. And it's a reason for a lot of people's mental states at the moment. There is that comparison. You're seeing other people and thinking your life doesn't look like that, or you don't look like that, or your business isn't at the level that theirs is, whatever it might be. They have the perfect answer to parenting and you're still struggling. But it is just that snapshots, and you know, we all know it, but I don't know why we just can't seem to grasp it. We know it's the highlight reels. We know that for some people they're airbrushed or photoshopped or whatever the situation is, but it's still going in subconsciously, isn't it? Still reaching us.
Exactly. You just hit the nail on the head, that subconscious piece. It's going in, and how many trillions of images of the same thing have we had go in, right? And then based off of our beliefs, our insecurities, our stuff, like it just makes it so easy to, like you said, get into that comparison trap or go, oh, I can't share this, it's not as good as this person, and then you hold back, right? So it really can fuel that cycle. And you know, we all have our stuff, and it's not that we all of a sudden have to show those vulnerable things or the website going down on social media. But I think it's just so important for people to know we're all human and we all have our stuff. And that's, you know, one thing we were talking about in the DMs is you're like, because I love your shares. Like, I love how you share your trips on your Instagram. Like I was saying, I kind of like vicariously live through you and your travels, like while we're like really hunkered down, like in business growth here. And it's just like, oh, it's so nice to see what you're up to and where you're going. Yeah. And when you said like, okay, I kind of feel like maybe I should be sharing more of like the business and the professional side, because this is the business, right? And there's this being caught up. So if you were to think of like your insecurity around, like, what is your fear or your insecurity around not sharing it on your social media?
That's a great question, and there's probably a few prongs to that. And I guess to answer it, I'm actually going to have to be really vulnerable now and share that with you. One, I touched upon earlier on in the conversation, where I said that I have this notion that people expect a female entrepreneur to be a certain character, which I'm not. So I feel like if I do show the type of person I am in business, that they're going to be like, oh wow, she's actually just quite shy and quite introverted and quite sort of withdrawn and reserved, and that's not what you'd expect of an entrepreneur, particularly of a business of our size. So I have that element because I look at other brands, competitors, and other industries as well, and I admire the people behind those brands and how they're able to put themselves in front of their brands. You know, you very much know who the people are behind the company. And that's because they do have a stronger character, I feel. They are more articulate, or they're better at presenting, or they're confident in being in front of the camera or the microphone. And they're also confident in talking about their topics and their industries as well. So I've shied away for that reason, because I think I'm not the character that people would associate as an entrepreneur. Secondly, I guess it probably falls off the back of Andy. I see how well he is, or how good he is at presenting on the health and wellness topics. So he runs all that education piece, any podcast or any YouTube or any conference that needs a speaker, he very much goes on the front of that. And I look at him and I think, I can't do it as well as him. It's obviously his natural talent to be able to present and talk in public, and he has this natural ability to understand the topic, break it down really, really simply, and then present it so that everyone can understand the science behind it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like I don't have that ability. They always say, if you can't, supposedly they say, if you can't teach a topic, you don't know it well enough yourself. And I kind of agree with that to an extent. However, I obviously understand the industry that we work in. I understand lights, I understand blue light, red light therapy, EMFs. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be able to grow the business. And I do all of the content creation for the brand. So I understand it. But for me to present on that topic would be a challenge for me. So I shy away from showing the business side of myself, for that reason, that people think, oh, she doesn't really explain that very well, or I expected her to know more than that. And it's purely because I just wouldn't have the words to put together to present it as well as someone like Andy does. So I prefer to just keep my business in the business, and then the person I show up on social media is the other side of me. Because that's the other thing, you know, what you do as your day job isn't all about you. You know, that's just one part of you. That's just how you make money. It isn't who you are as a whole human being. So I kind of use my social media as an escape from the business, because I create the content for the business. So basically the Bonnie Charge Instagram page is me anyway. I'm behind it. So I use my personal page to share the other side of the life, so that I have the balance. But then I do have that guilt where I think, could I accelerate the brand further if I was just able to step forward more and share more? Because ultimately then got two platforms spreading the knowledge. It's the same person behind them, but they have a different audience, different people connect. So that's where I come from. And when you did that post the other day about, you know, being authentic and showing up as your true self, I guess in a way it's kind of, for me, the opposite. I'm showing the other side of me, but I feel guilty for it. I feel like I should be adding more depth. And if people want to connect with me, do they really care what I ate for breakfast and what restaurant I had dinner at, or the fact that that beach was pretty and I wanted to take a picture of it? Probably not. I don't know. Some people will, but I feel guilty in that I should add more substance, and I should share how you grow a business, because people want to know that. I should share more on the well-being side of things and the knowledge we're gaining through this journey that we're on with Bonnie Charge. I should be sharing that. So it comes from a place of guilt, I think. And then you go back and you end up in this vicious circle where I loop back around and go, but is that authentic? You know, I'm coming from a place of guilt rather than genuinely wanting to put that forward. So actually, if I did start doing that, will it be inauthentic? You know, and then you just loop around in your head and you overthink things. And then you're just like, I don't know what to do. So you end up doing nothing. That's typically what happens to me. I pull back, don't post days, because I'm like, well, I don't know which side of me to share. I'm not going to post. I'll just absorb other people's content, which is what I was doing when I saw your post, and then thought, oh my gosh, there's other people that are like this, where they don't quite know which side of themselves to show.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and being so open. I really appreciate it. And I think the audience will too, because it is like, if it's just your personal life, to me, it's easy. You share your personal highlights, but when you're mixing business and personal, it's like, okay, this obligation, like I should show up as the educator, the mentor, the coach. I'm representing my business, products, services, whatever it is. So I want to make sure people know my expertise and know that I know what I'm talking about, and that I present well, and that like I am perceived visually in a certain way. And it just, I think we're starting to see that shift though, because you are seeing so many more people showing up in different ways, expressing themselves. And I think, and you can tell me if this resonates, but I've been observing the women around me who are, and not judging or like comparing, but just, okay, what's the pattern I'm noticing with businesses that are growing really fast? Women who are gaining traction, women who are getting a lot of aligned women coming in to want to work with them. Well, they're being themselves, they're being authentic, they're being vulnerable, and they're showing all of them, not just the professional side. They're not just continuing to share facts about whatever they're an expert in. It's all of it. Right. And I'm like, wow, it's wow. Okay. This is like nerve-wracking now to think about getting more vulnerable, being authentic, not just being like the business person, but going, hey, like, I have some of these beliefs and opinions that like may trigger some of you. Hey, like I've struggled with vulnerability because I've been afraid of what some of you may think if I'm fully myself. Like, and when we start to tread into that territory, it's uncomfortable. Now you're getting into this state where it's an emotional risk because you don't know how you're going to be perceived. And a lot of us have had like experiences that happened to us maybe when we were younger, where we weren't perceived or supported in our vulnerability, and that inner child wounding can come front and center. So, how do we work through that? Like what comes to mind when you think about going, you know what, I'm going to choose authenticity. I'm going to choose not to come from the shoulds, but what feels best for me. And how do you let go of that guilt?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, isn't it? Because I think, the very place where we're showing up to the world is obviously social media these days. But it's the very place that we're getting these messages from the media that it isn't okay to necessarily say what you think. We're seeing people being censored. We're seeing people being critiqued and criticized for the views that they're having. I mean, the 2-3 year phase that we've gone through with COVID showed that anyone that didn't believe a certain angle was told that they were a conspiracy theorist. So the very platform that we're choosing to show ourselves to the world is the platform that we're getting this information from, that you have to go away, or you're discredited, or you're blocked, or you're censored, or you're called a conspiracy theorist, or whatever it might be. So that it then becomes hard to put yourself out there on that very platform, and we do see, celebrities getting critiqued for the way they look or what they ate, or that, paparazzi have taken pictures of them saying, can you believe they had a McDonald's today? And it's so trivial. And so all of that is feeding into us, consciously or subconsciously, so that when it comes to us just wanting to post on our Instagram, which, let's face it, isn't reaching the world. We think it is. I mean, we wish it would. We'd all be like billionaires if marketing where you post on your business or personal profile and it reaches everybody. It doesn't reach everybody. The algorithms don't work like that. So you have to take that notion that it's not the whole world that's seeing you. So people are choosing to tune into you. And I think then you might be able to stop slowly breaking down these layers. I think it's layers. It's not just this one recall that you push through and then you're fine. It's first of all recognizing not everybody's going to see it. Secondly, that not everybody is necessarily going to judge it. And if people do, are they the people that you want to necessarily connect with anyway, if they're judging you? Because it probably means they're not aligned with your belief system. And so you just keep chipping away at these layers. And also by putting out there what you genuinely want to put out there, or your authentic, vulnerable self, however you want to phrase it, you do spark something in someone else for them to do it as well. Exactly how we've started this conversation in the first place was from DMs, from you putting a post out there. And I think, it's a bit like the rising sun in the morning. The sun comes up and then slowly people start to sort of stir in their beds and wake up and start their day. And the same happens. You just need that one person or that collection of people to start just posting what actually they want to post, or share what they want to share, or be who they want to be. And it will then start the domino effect of other people feeling that actually this is a safer space. It's not only gloom. It's not only criticizing on this platform. It's not all about censorship. Yes, that happens. Just don't follow that. If that's putting fear in you, unfollow them, or
Mm-hmm.
don't look at news on social media, and just connect with people that are bringing out the positive side of you.
Yeah.
And with time, that will get better. And that's something I've gone through. I was on holiday. Gosh, this must be going back about a year and a half ago, and I was sat by the pool, and I unfollowed like over 1,500 accounts, because I was like, I know it's feeding into my subconscious, and it wasn't bringing me any good. And I just chose to have a small number of people that I follow that either teach me something so that I grow as an individual, that are aligned with the way I live my life, so that we have something in common and we can share with one another and interact. Or there is a small portion of things that just make me smile. Like I follow cats about animals because it makes me
Love
smile.
it. Yes.
Follow about hotels and travel because it's a passion of mine. And
Yeah.
I think by doing these little things, you then start to carve out the place where that social media or that platform, whatever it is that you're utilizing, becomes a safer place. And when it's safe, I think you then naturally start to let down your guard a little bit more.
Yeah, well said. I totally agree. And that's the thing is, I've had my business for 10 years almost. And when you're used to showing up a certain way for almost 10 years and you decide to now like shift that, there's this thought going through my mind of like, wow, like a lot of people might leave because they've been used to seeing like the Amber coach side, but like bringing the authenticity in, right, is a whole factor. And I mean, maybe very few leave, but the thoughts cross your mind, right? Because you're thinking, this is so different. What if our views are very different, our opinions? What if they only want like the health tips, and instead I'm talking about vulnerability, and I'm talking more about emotion and spirituality, right? And it's funny to see the engagement between those quick tip, quick fix, like not that it's a quick fix, but those tell me everything in one post versus like the pouring your heart out. Like how many less people are connecting? And I'm going, well, maybe they're not connecting because they're afraid to say anything, because they're like, this is me, but I'm too terrified to respond and comment to your post. It's just interesting to see the psychological connection of how comfortable we are talking about like physical symptoms and like physical health and like the weather, but when it comes to really getting down to the nitty gritty, we're like, I don't want to go there, right? Like it's just like you said, society's been taught to kind of not feel, not to express, to hold back, and it's like you said, had a really negative impact on our mental health. So I feel like that's been a vulnerability for me, is fearing people will leave, but then I'm like, no, like let them go and it'll just clear space for more alignment. Like you have been unfollowing people and just like clearing out the old energy, and it feels really good, right?
100%.
Yeah, go ahead. And then I have a question.
Okay, no, I was just going to say, you're right in that if you do start talking about a topic that's maybe a different angle to what you have been doing for the last 10 years, yes, that there might be some people that don't resonate with that, or that's not the journey they're on, and it's forking off in a direction that they're not wanting to take or not ready to take, or whatever their individual reasons are, which is absolutely fine. And then you might find that you have a few drop off there, but then you will pick others back up that are wanting to learn more about that are on that path and want to hear from you in that respect. And you're right, the very notion of talking about vulnerability and putting content out there about being vulnerable is going to be hard for people to openly engage with, because they're going to have to be vulnerable to engage with your post, to like it or to comment on it. They're going to show their feelings, how they perceive to be to the world, that they're also in that situation, that they've been vulnerable. You probably find that you get a lot more uptake in your DMs maybe rather than publicly on your posts about those topics. But also it is quite a new topic, I find, for people. Diet and exercise, people have known for many years now that impacts your health, but mental well-being is a newer concept for people. And then adding to that the segments within that, like the vulnerability, that's new as well. And I think even the whole notion of trauma and how emotions affect your physical body, your mental well-being, all of these things I think are only starting to gain traction, and it's the beginning of it. And it's a little bit like how I was saying earlier, that we hit the market at the right time with blue light blocking glasses, and knowing a trend that was going upwards. It's almost like this is just the start of that phase. People, they have for too long, they've just thought, if I eat well and I move,
Yeah.
I'll have optimal well-being, but there's so much more to it. You know, you've got that, the mindset side that you're wanting to delve into. You've got the side that we focus on in the business, which is your environment. And it's just early days. So yes, it might be that you have people not necessarily flocking to it in floods and engaging with it like some of the other posts, because they have to be vulnerable to do that. But secondly, that it is new and people are learning about it, and maybe you're only now planting the seed that needs to grow within them. You know, not to strategize or look at things analytically from a business or marketing angle, because I think a lot of these things you need to go with gut feeling and intuition. But if you are to look at it from a business and marketing standpoint, people need 12 touch points before they make a commitment or a purchase or whatever it might be. So one post probably isn't going to have the effect. You'll notice, you keep doing that content in 12 posts time, it's really started to sink in with the individual, and then that's when you'll start to see the traction happen. And it can be off-putting for yourself. You know, you've put yourself in a position where you've been vulnerable, posting something different to the 10 years of content you've previously done, and then to maybe not see people engage at the level that they do with your other content. It's disheartening for you. You can think, I've done the wrong thing, I've been judged, you know, I'm impacting my business because I'm not getting engagement, and it's all these things. But it is a new topic, and it does take more than just that one post to completely change direction, and to obviously bring it out in other people as well. It's a journey, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Oh, is it ever? 100%. And that's such a great reminder about the touch points. And I agree. It takes time to warm people up, and you can't make people, you know, open up faster than they want to. And I think just holding that safe space is really the key. So something that I'm curious about, that I have a question about, is talk about vulnerability. You're growing this brand. This brand is creating a lot of success. You've brought on a lot of great influencers to help share about the brand, right? And educate as well. I'm curious how it felt for you guys when, and if it felt really vulnerable, you know, when you're bringing in influencers like Awaken with JP, right? And then when he's sharing all of these, right, he kind of took a shift in his content, which I'm like, it's so awesome to see what he's doing and bringing such a humorous spin to it. But like, was that happening already, or was this happening before he got into that? You're like, oh my gosh, how are people going to perceive our brand? Like, what is that process like for you guys when you have these influencers coming in and they're really speaking their truth?
Yeah, 100%. Look, he went through a challenging time, bless him. You know, I think it would have been about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, right in the midst of everything that was going on around the world. And he got a lot of backlash for his comments and his content. And we did a little bit as well as a brand. You know, we sponsored his podcasts and his YouTubes and his content. So, you know, there were elements where the community obviously thought that was a reflection of us as well. But in all honesty, it really isn't as big as you think it is. I think that if you line yourself with someone that's vocal and maybe says the wrong thing in terms of what your community want to hear, that it'll have a big effect on the business. It didn't. In fact, we doubled down on the amount that we sponsored with him. And that is because we took the time to get to know JP as a person. You know, I think a lot of people, coming back to the whole judgment of just seeing what you see on social media or on his content, thought that what he was saying was A, what he believed, B, that he was trying to push that angle, and C, thought that that was the core of who he was. If you actually have a conversation with JP, which we have had many conversations with him, we love him, he's great. You get to know who he is as a person. He's actually very, very holistic in how he views well-being, and his kind of outlook on life, I could say, is that he recognizes that the media push very heavy and hard-hitting topics to individuals and lead from a place of fear, which is keeping everybody in this state of control, I guess.
Yeah.
And he wanted to try and better people's mental well-being by using comedy and satire to essentially take the piss out of the topic that was pushed in the media, to put light on it, to try and show people it's not all doom and gloom. Don't be led into the fear and the control of this heavy topic that's getting presented to you. I'll just show you a lighter side of it. And in doing that, obviously, sometimes he showed the opposite side of it to try and conflict it. And people take it at face value and very literally, but actually behind it is someone that's trying to impact people's mental well-being. And when we knew that, we were like, that's exactly the type of people you need in the world, that are going to try and help people see things differently, so that they don't become on this mental decline, that the world is crap, everything's happening to us, and oh my gosh, what's going to be the future. He was literally just putting a different angle on it. So it actually, in the end, wasn't that bad for both of us. He went through, obviously, a challenging time with some people saying some horrid things about him. But once people have said their piece, they move on. You know, they've said their piece. And then the people that stay with him and stay with us are the ones that want to be involved in that brand as well. So it is challenging for an individual, more so for the individual creating the content. But ultimately, he stayed true to who he was, and his following are, I'd say, more loyal than ever.
Yeah. And I think that is the key, that we stay true to ourselves and we attract that aligned audience and the aligned customer. And you're always going to get some negative backlash, but that's part of it. And that's part of, you know, vulnerability, is being willing to accept that some of that will be received, but for us to try and stay as detached as possible, right? Because it's got nothing to do with you. You could eat at a certain restaurant and order an item off a menu and offend somebody, right?
Yes.
People get triggered very easily nowadays, but it doesn't have anything to do with us. It's their stuff. And when we can remember that, right, and detach and go, hey, I'm going to just be me. I'm going to share. I'm going to collaborate with the people I want to collaborate with. And like, that's the magnetism. That to me is so like attractive. Like, I just want to give my time and energy to it. I want to spend time with people that are like that. Right. So, and I love that. And the key is getting to know the person behind the brand. And,
100%.
you can feel the energy, but you can just feel the energy. The intent is good, right?
100%. Yeah. And it is that intent, and that is what karma is at the end of the day. People think karma is you do something bad, you get something bad happen to you, but it's more the intent behind the action rather than the action itself. If you accidentally chopped someone's finger off because you were chopping veg and you slipped, your intent wasn't to harm them, and that's the karma behind it. So you have to get to know the person and their core reason for the things that they do or the things that they say, because at the heart of it is that karma, and that's the thing that you need to be more mindful of, rather than just what you're seeing at face value. Because a lot of what they're doing for business is just how they're creating money in order to have the life that feeds into their values and their beliefs in the person they are at the core. So definitely delving deeper and not just taking things at face value, which I think a lot of us do and are guilty of.
Yeah. And knowing that when alignment occurs, we are so supported by the universe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, there's this whole thing. I'm new on my journey, on my spiritual journey, but there's that whole notion that we are all one. So if we're all one, then there isn't that separation, there isn't that judgment. There shouldn't be that comparison, because we're all just one energy anyway. We're all so it's when you separate and go, you're that, I'm this, or and therefore I'm going to judge. It's I think that's the piece that we haven't quite got yet. Is dropping us, and that we are all just one. We're all in this together. We're in this planet together. We're on this life together, and we're just figuring it out as we go. So have a bit more compassion, and don't judge. Everyone's entitled to have their views and their opinions, and if you want to share them, of course, share them. Be vulnerable, be open, but as the receiver, don't be so judging and closed off or unwilling to hear a different side of the story, really, because you might learn something new, you'd be surprised.
Exactly. Well said. I feel like that should be quoted and put in a post. Seriously. So what's the next steps for you in your vulnerability? Like, what are you feeling called to practice, share, heal?
Yeah, well, as I just mentioned, the spiritual journey is something
Mhm.
I'm kind of curious about now. I'm always curious. That's the core of who I am. I'm a creative, curious traveler. I just like to learn, see new things, experience new things. So that's the journey I'm on at the moment. You know, I've done the nutrition. I've kind of tried all the different diets. I found what works for me in my rhythm there with my diet. Exercise, I know what works for me there. The business continues on that whole environment that we're in.
Mhm.
Kind of optimizing that, but I'm definitely tapping more into that spiritual side, which it's just something that's curious for me right now, and that will probably feed more into that, recognizing who you truly are, understanding exactly what your purpose is in life, and being more vulnerable, more authentic, and showing that and sharing it, and building connections with people that want to get to know you for actually who you are, not because
Mhm.
you have a global business that there's always an agenda why people want to connect with you.
Right.
Sometimes access to the people you know, or they want
Mhm.
funded because of the money that you've now got from the business.
Right.
It's the people that genuinely want to be in your life and be a part of your life for who you are as a person. So I think, yeah, that's definitely the journey that I'm exploring. We're off to Bali in a few days just to do a spiritual getaway and just lock ourselves away and kind of just explore it a bit more in the middle of the jungle,
Mhm.
and sort of see if anything comes up there. But as well as obviously continuing to grow the business, continuing to travel, continue to be a creative, um, curious individual, and kind of just go with the flow a bit more.
Yeah.
Trying to let go of like holding on to things and like making them have to happen, because as much as I said I'm an introvert and a more reserved character, I am a doer as well. I'm just a quiet doer rather than it being a flamboyant actor character. And that doer personality does mean you want to just keep going forward at a million miles an hour and
Right.
moving up the ladders. And I hold on really tight to do that. And I think I need to just pull back a bit on that and let it flow where it needs to go. Where the business has grown so large at the moment, I see 2 or 3 directions we could take it, but I don't want to hold on and force it in one of those directions. I kind of just want to, let's just see what gets thrown our way, and
Mhm.
hopefully that might guide us intuitively rather than having to sort of strategize too much. I mean, you always have to strategize as business, but
Mhm.
um, kind of trust things a bit more, I guess you could say.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's literally been me the last 2 months. I'm like, okay, business, okay, intuition, universe, just show me what you want me to do. Right? Because it's true, we can get so tempted to like this and it's this way and this and like, yeah. And it's like you said, strategy is good, but when we bring intuition into it, it's a good combo.
Yes, 100%. And sometimes you end up doing the things that you never would have thought of doing, but are actually more aligned with the person that you are or the direction you
Mhm.
take. And some great things can happen. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an exciting journey. And I think we're both kind of at the same stage.
Yeah.
I feel like, when I said I'm looking to connect with people that are more in line with the type of person I am or the person I'm growing into, and the direction I'm heading, there was obviously a reason that your story showed up at the start of my feed. It's that, isn't it? It's trusting that more. There's a reason
Yeah.
why we're all sort of being drawn to one another at the moment. And I think it's kind of welcoming it with open arms, and let's just lap it
Mhm.
up. Let's do it together.
Mhm.
We're not alone. I'm in Australia or in Canada, but look, it's like you sat next to me.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of go on that journey and share what you learn. It might help someone,
Mhm.
it might not, but
Mhm.
share it. There's no
Yeah.
harm. So
Yeah.
I think it's exciting for you and I, and hopefully a lot of people that are listening as well.
Yes, I agree. And like I said, I'm so glad you DM me. Like when you first messaged me, it was just like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited that somebody resonated with this. And again, when you take off that coat of being the business owner, like it just felt like 2 girlfriends sitting, having a, a cup of tea or a glass of wine and just like sharing from your heart. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the environment we want to step more into. And I think that this planet is stepping more into is that oneness, like you said, and is just being able to dive in without knowing each other very, very well and going, hey, like I'm feeling the exact same thing. Right.
100%.
Magic happens.
It really does. It does. And look, just the very topic of being vulnerable. This is the very first podcast I've done by myself. I've done maybe 4 in my life, and they're with Andy. So I'm normally just sat there and he talks for hours, as you know, because I just haven't had the guts to do it. So this in itself has been fantastic, and it's that milestone in the journey that I was able to do that with you. So I thank you for that. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure, truly. And thank you for being open to coming on and being so vulnerable with me. It is so appreciated, and it will be so appreciated by the community because it shows your courage, and it's okay to be you and the way you run your business and the way you want to show up. It's totally fine. And thank you for being authentic and not, coming out of obligation to be a certain way. It's humbling, and it's refreshing, and it's inspiring. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners?
I would just want to say, if you are on this journey, let me know, because I want to connect with as many people that are experiencing this as me right now, because I'm still trying to figure it out. And if other people are trying to figure it out as well, let's figure it out together. So, connect with myself, connect with Amber, like let's just all just try and create that safe space online that we're craving in order to be ourselves. So let's just make a commitment that we can connect and create that environment for everybody that is dying to try and be more vulnerable and be their authentic self. So ditch the community that maybe wasn't filling you up, and follow the people that are feeding negativity into you, and start connecting with the people that are gonna be there on this journey with you.
And where can they come and follow you and be part of your world?
Yeah, well, obviously you can come and connect with the educational content for Bond Charge on Instagram. That's bondcharge_. And then if you want to connect with me personally, I'm Mant_.
Yay. And we'll make sure that those are linked up. But I'm so excited for this. I'm feeling like maybe some kind of event might have to occur at some point around this.
Yes, 100%. That would be amazing. Do you know what? I really want to start events. Yeah,
Me
I think
too.
if you in that wellness space, all the different angles together, that would be so good. But I mean, gosh, how you make that work, I don't know.
It's a whole other conversation.
Seed
Seed planted. Yeah, no, community is everything. So thank you so much for coming in and taking the time today. I'm so grateful for you and everything that you had to share. And hopefully this inspired some of our listeners today.
Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for listening, guys.